Hello, welcome to another video, and today I'm going to be looking at foam rollers and self-massage tools, all the different variations, and you can sort of see from the picture there all the different types of rollers and stuff we might use. And I'm going to go through how I might use all these different ones, because different regions of the body are more suitable to one than the other, and also my thoughts on this as well, because there's a lot of sort of debate about the use of these. Some people claim that they're good and other people claim that they're dangerous, and so we'll sort of have a chat about all of these different things. So this very first one I'm using here, this is really just a pool noodle, that you would often see used in swimming pools to help young toddlers and that to float in the water. It's quite a handy little tool for thoracic extension, which is what I'm doing here. And you can see as I'm doing this, I'm just sort of moving up a vertebrae at a time. Can you sort of see how I've just moved up a little bit, and then I move into extension. And if I feel like I have a restriction at a certain point, I'll leave it sitting on there, and I'll have my arms opened out like so. And ideally, I'd love to be like this. Often when I do this with people, if I just take that back a little bit, usually in this this position here, I'll often find people who really struggle with thoracic extension. Their arms will be like that and their wrists like so. They just physically can't get their rib cage to extend enough. Maybe there's some tightness at the shoulder. Maybe there's both of those things going on, but they really struggle to find this position. But this is a great exercise you can do on this sort of, well, it is a foam roller to some degree, but it has to be very small. And this is just like we call this like a snow angel. So you're trying to slide the back of your hands along the ground, and it just really encourages additional thoracic extension. You just got to be mindful doing it that you don't try and get all the extension through your lumbar spine. So you've got to try and keep some core activation here, and force the upper back to achieve it all. You'll know you're doing it well if the back of the hands can slide along the floor. So, but this is a great one for anyone with neck pain and shoulder injury of some degree, because there's always some type of thoracic limitation there. So you can sort of see the size of that noodle's very, very small, and it's perfect for working on that thoracic extension like that. This larger one, which is the more common sized foam roller, I would prefer to use this not to do what we were doing then, but just to roll. And when you're doing it, make sure you cradle your neck into your hands, just so that your cervical spine doesn't get jammed. You can sort of see how I've got my hands behind my neck there, not necessarily holding my head. And I might just roll up and down. This is good after a bit of a warm-up, and then at the beginning of your workout, and then rolling it out at the start. I don't really know if it's going to be a game changer for some people. I probably would say that pool noodle is more useful, especially for helping overhead movement. But in terms of helping overall, I don't know how much it would actually do. But so then moving with that same type of roller into this is more of a glute piriformis type of release. Some people really swear by this, think this is a game changer for them. Other people, it aggravates them, it makes things worse. Other people, it feels like it does absolutely nothing at all. When you're doing it, by the way, because a lot of people will cross the leg over and then they'll roll on the wrong side. When you're doing this particular, the reason we cross the leg over, by the way, it just stretches the glute max out of the way to sort of reveal the trigger point. But like I said, some people don't really get anything from it at all. So that first one with the leg cross was the piriformis and glutes. This one here is specifically the glute medius, which sort of sits on the top of the butt and can often get quite sore. This is probably more effective than the last one for some people. In terms of restoring its mobility, I don't really think it does that. I think it just maybe helps to release some trigger point that may be limiting your movement, and it's really the movement that's going to change everything. So after I've done the glutes, so I've done the piriformis and max, and then the glute medius on that second one, then I might move into the quads. I'm again a bit of a debate on this. I probably find stretching is more useful for the quads than the foam rolling. Having said that, I might sort of sometimes really just pick on the top part of that right above the knee there, so not going right up into the middle of the quad, just that top bit of the knee. Useful for people with chronic stiffness with knee pain. Can be sort of helpful to releasing trigger points that are hanging around there, but really it's learning to move better, and probably the flexibility is probably more beneficial to them. This roller is just a little bit more of a sinister one, and in this case I'm just showing you like a bit of a outside of the hip, ITB, TFL sort of area. Again, some people really just smash this to pieces, and that's probably one thing that I see with people who love foam rollers. At times they really overuse them, and that actually does more damage than good. I find that they're not effective if they're not used in combination with movement and stability drills especially. Just using them by themselves is pretty much useless. Like I said, some people just overuse them and just do too much. One thing I will also say about this, I see a lot of people using foam rollers on hamstrings and calves, even the lats. I personally don't find it's as useful for big muscle groups like that have a big thick muscle belly, a bit like I spoke about with the quads. I don't find trigger points hide in there. I find that's more like a true stiffness where stretching and learning to move is more useful. These self-massage tools are much more benefit when you're trying to isolate a trigger point as such, or mobilize the spine as I'm doing with this one. So this is a smaller, much more intense type of a roller. I'll show you in a second, that has a little groove in the middle, so it doesn't actually roll on the bony bit of the spine. It takes a bit of work to get it in the right place. Sometimes if you don't get it in the right place, it doesn't roll, or you just sense it straight away. And I think on this first version I don't quite get it in the right place, and I have to adjust it. See how it sort of moved? So I just need to adjust it and straighten it up. Once I get that, it'll actually roll right between. This is perfect for a person with neck pain, wing scapular type people. This one's very useful because it really gets into those rhomboids much deeper than the foam roller because of the small surface area. So the smaller the surface area of the roller, the more concentrated it will be. So it will really find hidden trigger points. And you'll always find there's way more trigger points in the shoulders and the neck than in the legs. So I don't really find, other than the glutes, because there's a bit of that hip and pelvis area is very unique. I don't really find there's trigger points so much in the calf. I find it's just true stiffness, and that's more useful rectifying with stretching. And you see that little orange tool there, it has that little groove in the middle there, so it misses the spine. So this thing's called a Posture Pro. You can buy it from a place called Locker Room Sports. This next one's called a Pocket Physio, and this is meant to be designed it's designed to be the shape of someone's elbow. So this would be like when you'd be booking in to see a massage therapist or a physiotherapist who might use their elbow to really, you can sort of see my face grimaces on this because I really get on that trigger point. Again, another one for that person with neck pain and where there's rhomboids in their scapular thoracic trigger points, really limiting their neck and arm movement. This is quite a handy tool. Again, this bit like the one we saw at the very beginning where I'm moving my arm. This really works well with movement, because as the scapula is moving and the trigger point kicks in, and you can sort of see I'm really feeling it on this one, and I can't take it any longer. That's it. But this one's a really useful one for getting arm movement back, and you would use it between sets. So if you're using, say, a pushing or pulling movement, and you're trying to sort of enhance it, it's a great way to do that. You could also use this tool. You can use that tool all around the areas of the shoulder, like the levator scap. I don't actually show you on this one, but you can use it on that as well. It's just a bit hard at times to find the exact spot, but you could also use it on the piriformis muscle. To be honest, I tend not to do this. I find it can be a little bit too aggressive, and I prefer the foam roller. Sometimes pushing on this muscle just puts more pressure into the sciatic nerve, which just makes things worse. So I tend to avoid it at times. I don't probably use it as much as I may have done in the years gone by. I just find I get faster results and more lasting results from movement and learning to stabilize. Now I'm going to take the little orange Posture Pro, and also I'm going to grab the spiky ball. I'm going to show you how I use these tools up against the wall. I could do them on the floor there. It's sort of a little bit awkward though. It's a little bit easier against the wall to use this. So the spiky ball is a handy tool to get into the levator scap area. It just works better than the orange one because it's a little bit more focused, and it's not so focused like the Pocket Physio. It's sort of like the in-between tool. So you can see how you might need to use various tools just depending on what you're trying to find. So it's pretty easy to find. This one sort of sits right on the top of the scap. This is the one that where most people will have, they'll get migraines and stuff going and headaches from. So you'll very easily find this, and then basically you just roll around it. If you get on the spot, then you just leave it there, and just really sort of dig into it. And again, it works well between sets of other movements, overhead movements in particular, where the trigger point might try and kick in again. All right, so that's how you use the spiky ball. Again, I could use it on the other things that I've shown you already, but I tend to find the other tools are better than the spiky ball for that. With the orange one, this is where I might see people trying to use the foam roller for the lats. I find this tool is way more effective because it actually gets through the lats and under into the infraspinatus and the teres muscles that are often a very big problem with shoulder injuries and shoulder pain. Most people have no idea there's a trigger point even there. They have no sense of pain or anything, but trust me, when you start digging around with things like this, you'll know just how deep that trigger point is. And it's actually a very useful tool to release a shoulder impingement. So I use this all the time, and then where my hand is like that, I can actually do a test where I try to lift that elbow upwards, and you'll find prior to doing this sort of trigger point release for around there, the person struggles, really feels a stiffness, even a pain radiating down the arm here. Almost immediately after doing this trigger point release, they have no pain at all, a complete freedom of movement. Unfortunately, it's not lasting enough if you don't follow it up with the movement and the stability work to hold it together in the right place. The trigger point just returns. But this particular drill is very, very useful in the rehabilitation stage of restoring it. If you're just constantly releasing it, doing your exercise, the trigger point comes back, release it again, do your exercise, the exercise has a greater chance of improving. And that's sort of true with all of these things I've shown you. They only work if they're used with other things that's the corrective exercise that eliminates the body's need to recruit the trigger point in the first place. You can't just release a trigger point and have no strategy to restore stability. The trigger point was there for a reason. If you have no strategy to replace it with, all that will happen is it will just come back. All right, so I hope that sort of gives you some idea of how to use self-massage tools, and and a better idea of how to, the different types of tools that you might use depending on where you need to concentrate. All right, so I hope you enjoy that video. Check the description underneath the video there, because I have a few links to things, articles and that explain what I was talking about, how I might use them between sets, and that'll help put this in context and give you a better idea of how they're actually most effectively used. All right, I'll see you on the next video.